So we have finally seen the launch of the start of the Madlanga Commission. This follows those sensational claims by General Mkhwanazi done on the 6th of July. We're only near the end of September, but at least the commission has started. And sadly, it's not a court case, but it's a commission, so it's going to be very interesting, and the commission will eventually make its recommendations, and hopefully that doesn't end up in the same place that the Zondo Commission's recommendations ended up, or all the other 1,000 commissions of inquiry. But let's just start off by looking at what has emerged from the start of this Madlanga Commission, which has been quite explosive, to say the least. At the moment, we have heard from the man himself, General Mkhwanazi, who has looked quite comfortable and very competent and really well prepared and engaging and kind of everything that you want out of a hero whistleblower. It's kind of like, you know, almost sort of cut straight from Hollywood. So what, and let's be clear here at this point, it's just his testimony. There would have to be cross-examinations, and, you know, it's his version of the story. We haven't heard people that have challenged what he had to say, because that's not where we are at the moment. But it's safe to say that the genie is well and truly out of the bottle and cannot be put back. I say this because Mkhwanazi made, at very least, some of the claims that he made would have to be tested, and some of them would be very, very hard to dispute. What is indisputable was, you know, one of these questions, and it goes back to some of the naysayers about Mkhwanazi, saying, you know, is he trying to cover up something? Why did he do it in the dramatic way that he did it? Which I termed looked a bit South American, with a whole lot of armed men in camouflage, looked all, you know, a little bit sinister. Why did he do it that way? Well, he did explain this quite well, and for that there is evidence. When he heard that the political killings task team had been disbanded, he tried desperately to speak to everybody through formal means, without success. He even went to Parliament, who didn't seem to take him very seriously, and that was in the beginning of this year, so Government of National Unity. And some questions has to be asked. These claims, which are now so important that the President had to call a very own commission of inquiry with at a massive expense, why weren't the Parliamentary Oversight Committee taking this a little bit more seriously? Because these were indeed very explosive claims. But hey, that question, I'm sure, will emerge. The burning question remains, why was it disbanded? That's like question number one. And for that, we are going to need to hear from the currently sunning himself former or current or second or a Minister of Police, Senzo Nkunu, who was the guy who disbanded the task team. Based on what? Why did he disband it? Like, all of the excuses and reasons seem to be quite thin. Because there is no doubt that it was starting to uncover some really awkward information. What was that awkward information? Well, it looks like the crime bosses, Kat Matlala and Kati Malefo, who are the guys that have been fingered most as being the crime syndicate that seem to enjoy some political support. They really went the whole hog, especially in that wonderful city called Ekurhuleni, run by the ANC and the EFF. What did they do in the city of Ekurhuleni? Well, they got blue lights, they got political protection, they got inside information about police operations. They even had their Maybach, their luxury car, registered as a municipal car. And the municipality of Ekurhuleni fitted it with blue lights, I presume also sort of shelled out for the maintenance and the tires and the petrol and so on. But quite unbelievable that there was even an incident where Matlala could even get the local police chief to tell him whose car was parked outside of his house by using government systems. It's quite crazy. So there's already questions to answer from the city of Ekurhuleni and the way that they've carried on, and that's a mixture of their metro police as well as their police force over there. Now, we know the East Rand is kind of where people go and don't necessarily go home at night, but it's a fairly big allegation as to what went on there. But there's no doubt that these guys enjoyed unbelievable protection from police in that part. Then he dragged in the names of some members of parliament. National Coloured Council leader Fadil Adams and the Democratic Alliance Diane Kohler-Barnard. Not as people that committed crimes, but people as such. The crime that he's committing, saying that they got involved in, was to disclose some confidential information. Now, Adams says that the information he got, this file, was in a file slipped under his office door. Diane Kohler-Barnard said the same. So yeah, you get this thing that's got information in it. One would imagine it's not a police file, but just a sort of a piece of paper telling you what's gone on. And in this case, they went and disclosed this information to the media, but this was not information that was meant to go to the public. So did they knowingly contravene the law? Who is slipping information under the door of members of parliament? And why are they in such a hurry to not clear it first before they go and tell the media? But look, it doesn't look like a major crime was committed. There's just no doubt that people had access. If you think about it, access to the parliamentary offices, able to put this thing under the door, that means that you've got somebody on the inside that's doing these kind of things. So after a couple of days of this Madlanga Commission, what has become absolutely patently clear is that at some point President Cyril Ramaphosa has to sit down there and answer a few questions. And the biggest question he has to answer is, why did he appoint the two successive police ministers that he's appointed? One being Becky Tele, where most of this happened under his leadership of the police, and now Senzo Mkhunu. In both cases, these are big allies of President Ramaphosa, and they are guys from KZN, where all of the problem originates from, and they both seem to be deeply compromised. And I think the president has to explain his appointment. He can't just get away with, well, I thought they were stand-up guys. No, there's question marks around both of them. And of course, a lot of this stuff, you would imagine the president is informed. The Ministry of Intelligence is within the presidency. So there's no ways that somebody in the office next door knows stuff and isn't informing the president. I remember in the Zondo Commission that when questioned on his role as deputy president, when Jacob Zuma was doing everything, Cyril was shocked that he hadn't heard about any of these things, even though there have been books written about it. But maybe he just wasn't concentrating on the days that all this information comes on there. The other reason that the president has to get involved here, has to answer a few questions, is there's a name that comes up a lot. And that is one Morgan Maumela, who happens to be related to Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, there was outrage when Jacob Zuma was president, and we had Kulubusa Zuma and a few other Zumas that were getting preferential stuff. And I'm saying leaders and their families, we have it right now with the deputy president, where Paul Mashatile's children seem to be the best businessmen that have ever done business. Now we've got Cyril, the Teflon man, who Parliament did flick-flacks, and it looks like the Constitutional Court is doing their best to do flick-flacks to get him to not answer questions about Pala Pala. But yeah, you've got the nephew of the president who's seemingly involved with crime syndicates. At some point, the president, not as just some average citizen, but because he's the president, has to go and answer questions as to what was Morgan Maumela doing, and how much did the president know? And he must go in front of camera and say, well, you know, I don't know this guy, or I've never spoken to him, or whatever. Let's get it on record. But there's no doubt he's going to have some questions to ask, because he is the main guy. And he's the guy who had the ability to take some control of the situation. Because there's absolutely no ways that an important team like the Political Killing Task Team is disbanded without the president knowing. The decision's made, whoever made the decision, that's one thing. Then the question is, the president must have been informed. Like, you don't just make a big decision like that. We all remember the hullabaloo when the Scorpions were disbanded. That was all over the media, and everybody went out there and gave their reasons and so on. This isn't a thing that just happens and the president finds out, 6 weeks later. No, he must have signed off on it. Which of course means that the next most important people that are going to have to sit in front of this commission is going to be our current or previous, or whatever you want to call him, the guy who's on permanent holiday, Senzo Mkhunu, who has to go and answer questions as to why he disbanded the Political Killing Task Team. And then, of course, former Minister of Police, Bekitele, who managed to phone Kat Malefo 10 times on the day that he was going to be arrested. Like, he's a former minister. He lived in Matlala's penthouse in Pretoria. He's got some serious questions to answer. And there's no doubt that all of this links to some crimes that we hear a lot about. And we're very excited because pretty soon we're going to have the author of Jeff Wicks come onto the State of the Nation. He's written the book, Why Babita Deokaran Had to Die, where he's gone deep into the corruption of Tembisa Hospital, which has been absolutely looted and led to the assassination of Babita Deokaran, who had uncovered this theft and was trying to report it to her management, and instead she had to be gunned down in her driveway in front of her family. This is all linked. The other person's name that keeps on coming up with Tembisa Hospital and the malfeasance there is the aforementioned Morgan Maumela, who was also involved in that. So there is no doubt that those two police ministers have to go in to explain what they knew or didn't know. Then there's Shadrach Sibiya, the Gauteng Hawks head, who is currently being suspended, but he seems to be every criminal's best friend. Now, if you're the Hawks head in a place like Gauteng, I don't know if you should be mates with criminals. Like, the optics don't look good, do they? But this is a guy who the cloud seems to follow. But there's no doubt he's going to get his day in front of retired Justice Madlanga, and he can answer a few questions as to who he knew and why he knew them. Which raises the other question. Why are our South African office bearers, even these very senior people, so accessible? How come people can just phone them up in the middle of the night? But that's a South African thing, but it's very concerning. And then, of course, some of the other allegations that Mkhwanazi has made, that there are really crooked people within the judiciary, and Mkhwanazi has referred to them a lot. He's kind of made mention of one of the hitmen, the person responsible for the murders of probably Deokaran, but definitely DJ somebody, and there's a few other murders, and that is one Pule Tau, who was a police detective by day and an assassin by night. The guy gets caught, he goes to jail in the Vaal, and the judge lets him out on bail. Now, you've got to ask yourself why. Like, here you've got somebody who has just gunned down people. The police have just made a great breakthrough in arresting the guy. A judge leads him out on bail. And so it goes on, but there is no doubt that there have been some really strange decisions that have come out of the judiciary, and we need answers in South Africa. This commission is only starting, it's only getting started. Is there a chance that this one gets swept under the rug? The rug's getting mighty full. There is no doubt. The president is going to do his level best, one would imagine, to say, well, I'll apply my mind and take 2 years, and by that stage he's voted out at the next ANC elective conference. He's recalled, nothing ever happens. His successor, whoever it is, says, oh, I'm not sure that president was applying his mind, and the whole thing goes nowhere. There's every chance. But I can tell you that this one is being done, and you may say that the Zondo Commission has been swept under the carpet. I think it has and it hasn't. Right? There is no doubt that people should have gone to jail based on what came out in the Zondo Commission. There is no doubt. And some of the other commissions, but let's talk about that one, because that was done in the glare of television. We watched it, we read the books, we read the reports, etc., etc. We know, the names are known. People may not have gone to jail, but that commission and its work is far from forgotten. And at the very least, it cost the ANC their majority in the last election. And this one, I feel that if there's an attempt to bury it, will put the death blow to the ANC and to those political careers of the people involved. And like I'll keep on saying, and I say this largely on some experience, but also on a little bit of hope, I think that the crimes here are a little bit easier to connect to people in the street. We are talking about bad criminals that weren't just stealing money from parastatals that feels like if they're not going to steal it, somebody else is going to steal it. This is people that were peddling drugs, that were murdering innocent people, that had a reign of terror in our cities. I don't think that the public's in the mood to just let this be swept under the rug. And certainly this comes out in the age of social media, enhanced social media from before, where questions will be asked by people like myself, wherever, as to what happened about this revelation at the Madlanga Commission, and so on. It is going ahead. It is very interesting stuff. We will keep you updated as to the developments on there. We'll keep on trying to find out where the questions should be asked, but there's no doubt that the president should appear before that commission. His 2 police ministers should appear at that commission, and more names are coming out at a hell of a rate, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes to from here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please subscribe to the channel. Look out for our interview with Jeff Wicks, where we talk about the whole mess that was the Tembisa Hospital and the assassination of Babita Deokaran. Subscribe to the State of the Nation. We'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining me.